All right, folks, almost ready. Just needed some notes. So we're just kind of getting started a little early. I'm just checking over things. All right, so we got camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, sound, check, check. Back to me, checking the live chat. Ooh, that's working. Okay, so I'm going to start a couple minutes early just to go over some announcements. So let's see, live stream. So today is October 28th, and here we are, live streaming. And obviously, if you're not here yet, which no one is because there's no one on the viewer, you can always watch this later on YouTube. It posts within about 6 hours, depending on the YouTube's traffic. So, live stream. We are coming up, believe it or not, on our 10-week marking period. We're about week 8 right now. So, just about 2 weeks into November, we are going to be summing up grades for the 10 weeks. At that point, I'll give you plenty of warning that that's coming to an end. But at that point, once I report the 10-week grades, I don't really have any way of changing them. We have to contact guidance once I report them. And I think in that case, it's really only under a medical excuse. So keep on top of things. Speaking of due dates, the 30th, that's this Friday, October 30th, we are summing up the grades that are in the book right now. So on the 30th, we sum those up. So just check through School Tool and make sure that you're up to date. If you're not sure about anything, contact me as soon as possible, because on Friday, October 30th, I'm going to close everything down by 1 o'clock. And we don't change those unless there's some kind of medical excuse. So today I'm going to run through the quizzes associated with each live stream. So I will give you all the answers to that. Let's see, that's 10:30. We talked about the grades. 10-week mark is coming up. We talked about the live stream. Reminder to remote students every Wednesday. I set aside an hour for you between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock, and that is a Google Meet. So I'm available for you from 1 to 2 each week, and I will stay there for the full hour if need be. Speaking of that, the live stream that we're doing right now, I have set aside between 10 and 11 o'clock every Wednesday, and I think next week has changed some way, but I don't check the school calendar for that. But where am I going with this? I set aside time for photography, 10 to 11 every Wednesday. And once I'm done presenting the material, then I usually stick around for about 5 more minutes. I check the live chat, and I check my email if there's any questions, comments, need for clarification. I cover those, but after about 5 minutes, if there's nobody around and no one needs anything, then I shut things down because I don't want to sit in front of an empty screen. So I think that is all the reminders or announcements that I have, and we'll get into photography. So this week, what did we do? We developed our roll of film. So last week we made a test strip using the campus shoot, the one that we did all together. So we did 5, 10, 15 in the darkroom. This is where we put our negatives in contact with the photo paper. So that's called a contact sheet. So we use the test strip to guess our best time, what the best time might be. So we do 5, 10, 15, excuse me, exposure time. That's how much time the light hits the photo paper. So we did 5, 10, 15. We developed it. We pulled it out of the developer after a minute, put it in the stop bath for 30 seconds. We put it in the fixer for 3 minutes. Then we brought them out, we squeegeed them, we took a look at them, and we decided, okay, 5's too light, 15's too dark, 10 still kind of dark, so it's somewhere between 5 and 10. So we make a guess. We'll try 7 seconds. You get a fresh piece of photo paper, put it down on top or underneath the negatives in contact with the photo paper. Yeah. Okay. Put glass on top. We change the timer to what we think is the best time, which would be 7 seconds, and then we just hit the button. No cardboard this time, and hopefully this gives us our contact sheet. Contact sheet is a photograph of your negatives. It makes them positive. Okay, so we went from a negative, which all the light areas are dark and all the dark areas are clear. We switched it back around, and this is how we get the positive. Now, why do we do these? We're going to look through these and decide which ones are worth printing. So we kind of check it and say, well, that one's pretty good, that one's not so good, that one's great. And because we're not going to print, we're not going to make enlargements of every one of our negatives. We're going to choose the ones that we think are best. So that is a test strip, that is a contact sheet. That's what we did last week. So tomorrow and Friday, A and B cohort folks, you are going to get your stuff off of the drying rack. So this is Olivia's right here. She's going to get these two things together. Okay, she'll staple them. She makes sure her name is on here somewhere. And this is a grade, okay, that we'll be putting in this week. Next day we went back and we did another test strip. This is where we put the negative up in the tray. We shot the light all over and we could see a really big photograph. Okay, so again we did 5, 10, 15. We've got to figure out the best time. So we did a test strip for the print. Okay, 3 names for this. We're going to call it an enlargement. We're going to call it a print. We're going to call it a photograph. Okay, they're all the same thing. All right, so we do 5, 10, 15. Same idea. We develop it. We look at it. 5's too light, 10's too dark. Now let's do it differently this time. 5's too light, 10's too light, 15's too dark. Maybe we guess 12. So we go back in, set the timer for 12 seconds, put a fresh piece of photo paper in, hit the timer, no cardboard this time, 12 seconds, and there we go. Now maybe we guess wrong, okay? But right now we're just trying to get some results. We're trying to get an image here. We'll get better. Okay, there's a lot of variables to work through. So eventually we're going to fine-tune this. This is really too dark. So if this was 12 seconds, later when we get into kind of fine-tuning this, we'd say that maybe 12 seconds is too much. Maybe drop it down to 10. Okay, so what Olivia would do next is she would find her test strip, find her print. She'd staple these together, make sure her name's on it. That's a grade. So test strip and contact sheet, test strip and print. Okay, those are grades. All right. Now, Thursday and Friday, this is what we're doing. You already have a negative sleeve. It has your negatives from the campus shoot in there. You have your name on top. If you don't, make sure your name's on it because we've already had people leaving their negatives in the darkroom. Negative care, we're going to get into that. Biggest part of negative care is not losing them, okay, or not damaging them. Because if you leave them back in the darkroom and they get lost and someone just kind of throws them off the side and they get stepped on, then you can't make prints. If you can't make prints, you can't pass photo. All right, so if you lose your negatives, then you got to sign out a camera again, and that's if we have film still. We are on our last few rolls of film. So, and if you need to buy film, when we buy it in bulk, it's fairly cheap. It's about $260 a roll, $250 a roll. When you buy it yourself, black and white 35mm film from Amazon. If we have time at the end, I'll look it up. But it's more. All right, so take care of your negatives. So here are some negatives. These are not good. These didn't come out. So, and I need scissors. Be right back. So scissors. Who's got the scissors? We have scissors in this room. There's scissors. Okay. Got it. Okay, so almost everybody's film came out. pretty darn close for our first time through. So what you're going to do is make sure you cut these in groups of 4. There's no negatives here. Okay, I'm just using this as an example because I don't want to cut people's film. So I have to cut them in groups of 4. A single negative isn't going to work. Now, what if, you know, I don't have anything, this is all junk, and this is one negative right here? Well, then keep the junk with it. Cut it so that there's extra film there, but we need 4 in a row, even if it's some junk film, to move it in and out. Once you have your negatives, very carefully only touching them by the edge, you're going to slide them into the sleeve, and that will help protect them, okay, with a plastic coating on it. And then you're going to put it inside like a 3-ring binder, because if this gets twisted and turned on a floppy binder, your negatives are going to bend and twist, and they will not be good. You'll have very poor results. And there's no, once the negative is damaged, there's no fixing it. Okay, if it's scratched or folded or something. So, yeah, you don't want to get water on them. You don't want to chew on them, sneeze on them, any of that stuff. As soon as they get in the sleeve, you only take them out to make a print. When you put it up on the tray, you're holding it by the edge, and then you put it right back in the sleeve when you're done. And then when you leave the darkroom, you always take your negatives with you. You'll get in the better habit of that. It's the first time we did it. We only had a half hour. We were kind of rushing through it. So this week, you definitely want to get back there and make sure you get your negatives back, because I know there's at least 3 or 4 back there. Okay, remote students, real quick. So I have Jordan's film here. If you haven't picked up a camera, you're running out of time. Okay, you got to go and pick up your camera. They're in the lobby in a box. It has your name on it. And I'm going to switch cameras over to this. Okay, perfect. And if you can't remember what you're shooting photos of, here's the photography website. We're on, well, we were on week 5, 6. This was a while ago. But here are the assigned photos. There's 12 total. Here it even says it right down below. Total 12 exposure roll, meaning 12 photos. 6 of them are up to you. Woo! We just lost what we were doing. Okay. That was weird. Okay. 6 are up to you. 6 are assigned. And here's the assigned photos. A portrait. A shadow. A still life, which is a group of objects. A landscape, architectural detail, that's where you zoom in on a building in some way. These all have examples here. Okay. And plants. Okay, they could be plants outside, or you could even go to a grocery store and shoot pictures of mushrooms or peppers or lettuce or whatever, but some kind of plant. It's not a bad idea to, with your choice photos, to maybe do 2 of each of these. The more negatives you have, the better off you are. Okay, so if you only shoot 6, we had maybe 2 people only shoot 6. They didn't understand there was 12 on there. Well, now they only have those 6 to choose from. If you shoot all 12, your odds are better at being successful. So, Jordan, I'm developing your film today. If you shoot your photos and you get them in here, I can develop it for you. And then as soon as I'm done, I'm going to photograph the negatives and send them to you, so at least you're having some of the experience in class that we're doing, and it's not just book work. Speaking of the book work, remote students, you have an outline of it's part of Appendix 1. And while I'm here, let's just jump to the text. So how to find that. Here's the first page of the photography site. Okay, how to outline a chapter is right there. But Carlson, how do I outline it? That tells you exactly how. Okay, where's the book? Right here, recommended text, photographic eye. Okay, it's in a PDF format. You could download it, or you can scroll right down through the Appendix 1. It's not Chapter 1. Appendix 1. Whoops. Here, let's go back to the contents so you can see this. Back. Okay. See Chapter 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We're getting towards the back of the book, and there it is, page 227, Appendix 1. So what this is doing, it's truly not busy work. Okay, this is exactly what we did in class, and it substitutes for, you know, you being here and working with the chemicals. You're still going to have negatives. You're still going to have this, you know, where you shot the photos with the camera. We're just cutting out the darkroom part. So 220, 227. Okay, there it is. Okay, so Appendix 1, 227. I can't remember exactly which page it goes to. It's 227 to, I'm going to guess. Right. I bet it was 227 to 237. Yeah, 227 to 237. It's 10 pages that you're outlining. And that's pretty much will cover everything that we did physically in class. Okay, so that's where the book is. That's how to outline a chapter if you're not sure about that. Okay, let's get to the quizzy for this week, I think. I covered the negatives, negative care. All right, quizzy, that's painting. We don't need that. Okay, so something we're going to talk about, there's caring for negatives. There's a whole video there that I just talked about, but we're moving on. Now, one thing that we're going to get to this week is the penny line drawing. Thursday and Friday, we're going to take a look at our negatives, care for our negatives, but I'm going to do this assignment in class. All right, so just so you see it. Now, at home, folks, you're going to get this assignment this next coming week, but we're going to kind of start it this week. So, all right, real quick with this, I'm going to film this tomorrow when I do the demonstration, and I'll put it on here. But basic idea, you get a piece of paper. It's going to be 4 by 5. The piece of paper, you're going to draw lines on it using a ruler. You're going to trace pennies on it. Okay, so you don't have to have any sick drawing skills. Basically, if you can make a line and you can trace a penny, you're doing pretty good. Okay, so penny line drawing, use a penny, trace circles on a 4 by 5. Use graphite to shade the circles to create the illusion of volume, like a sphere. Okay, and this is, you know, the lights and darks of it. What we're going to do with this is we're going to make it into it's going to be like a negative. We're going to use this in the darkroom to make a print. So A and B, folks, you'll have Thursday and Friday to work on this in class, and then we're going to start messing around with it next week. Remote students, I will assign this on Google Classroom. I'll assign it to everybody in Google Classroom, but the idea would be you'd make this at home, you'd shoot a photo of it, send it to me. This is for remote students only, and we will make the print for you in the darkroom and then send it back so you can kind of see what we're doing here. All right, so, and super important, don't write your name on the back of the drawing, although we try as art teachers to get you to do that your whole life since kindergarten on, but in this case, it would be bad because the light's going to go through this paper just like it goes through negatives, and in that case, your name would come out backwards on the image, and that's not what we're looking for. Okay, so that's what's coming up. And the quizzy. So I'm going to run right down the quizzy. Like I said, I'm going to give you the answers right here if you watch. So number 1, what is the primary photo technique of this image? So in the image that they give you on the quizzy, it's kind of a flower. It's really close up. And did I skip it? Nope. You know what? I think it's back one. It's week 5, 6. I kind of split these up because, yeah. They were terms that we were kind of learning as we went along. So scroll on down, past developing, all this business. There's a rule of thirds. Okay, so there's the lines. We divide the picture plane into 9 sections. And anywhere there's a cross, okay, there's the cross, that's where you're going to drop your subject. That's where we want people to look. Okay, so, but the first one on the quiz is not about rule of thirds. It's about a close-up. Okay, and there's the definition. There's some examples right there, just here. Okay, so close-up on the flower, close-up on the eye, close-up on the bug. Okay, there's the definition of it. So number 1 would be a close-up. Number 2, what is the primary photo technique of this image? So in that image, there is a pear, And guess what? It's divided up into those 9 sections, and where those 2 sections cross over, that's where the pair is. So that would be rule of thirds. That would be B. Okay. Number 3, what is the primary photo technique of this image? Okay, it's a picture of a guitar, and this is depth of field. This is where we're kind of looking at something focused, all right, up close, this girl, young lady here, and then as we get further away, it's blurred out. All right, this is used in portraiture an awful lot, and thumbnails in like YouTube videos, because we want you to focus on the subject. And by focusing here and having the background kind of blurry, or opposite in this case, it's blurry up close and it's focused as we go further away. Both of these, and in the guitar, the neck of the guitar is in focus, and the base of the guitar all the way in the background is blurry. So that would be C, depth of field. Flip it over. Okay. Told you I'd give the answers. Number 4, what is the primary photo technique of this image? Okay, and it's viewpoint. Okay, it's as if you are looking down at it. Now it also could be, but it's not one of the choices. It also could be close up, but that's not one of the choices. It's not leading lines, it's not rule of thirds, it's not framing. It would be viewpoint. Number 5, what is the primary photo technique of this image? All right, so we have what looks like a bridge and some kind of fence or pipes, and this is an excellent example of leading lines. So I think leading lines is on the next page, so I'm going to jump over week 7, 8. All right, there we go, leading lines. So train tracks. I usually get at least 1 or 2 photos like this every semester. So we have this vanishing point. The lines are leading away from us. In this case, the lines are leading to the right. Okay, this woman's walking. All these lines are pushing this way. All the lines are pushing where this man is, I think, walking away or walking towards us. I can't quite tell. But leading lines refer to the techniques of composition where the viewer of the photo's attention is drawn to the lines that lead to the main subject of the image. So that would be D. Number 5 would be D, leading lines. Number 6, what is the primary photo technique of this image? So we've got this train station, and it is depth of field, because we have an area to the left that is blurred out, that's kind of closer to the photographer, and as we go further out where they focused, the train is in focus. It's kind of redundant. Number 7, what is the primary photo technique of this image? This is framing. I'm going to jump back here. Jump back. And I will check the email and the live stream in just a moment to see if there's any questions. All right, scroll on down. Framing. Okay, framing in photography refers to the technique of drawing focus to a subject in a photo by blocking other parts of the image with something in the scene. So in this case, this woman's standing here, and she is literally in a frame. Okay, in this case, the city is framed by this wire fence. In this case, the mountain, okay, Mount Fuji in the background here, is framed by these cherry blossoms all the way around. So in the case of number 7 on the Quizzy, the scene is framed by that kind of rock structure. So that's kind of how that works. What technique is framing? So number 8, right? So A would be a close-up, that's a bug. Okay. C would be more of a portrait or even symmetry, I would say. D would be like a rule of thirds. So B, number 8, B is the framing technique. So I'm going to take a break for just a moment, and I'm going to check over on my live stream here just to see if anybody has any questions. No, not so far. I'm checking my email. No, not so far. Okay, so I'm going to jump back in here. And nope. Okay, yeah, why not? Camera 3, there's our negatives. There's the success we've had, which is really pretty good. We had 3 classes have completely perfect negatives. One class had a little difficulty, and we're still working out. I don't know if it was user error. I'm going to go check the chemicals today to make sure that it wasn't the developer, but they'll catch up. We sent out cameras, and they'll be fine. So, for those of you that haven't gotten cameras back this week, because you'll be falling behind. Next week we're going to be moving on. Okay, so back to camera 2. There we go. So what did we leave off on? Number 8 was B, framing. Number 9, what is the primary photo technique of this image? This one is background. Okay, and I don't know if I have a specific image for this. Let me just flip to week 7, 8. Symmetry. Okay, background. In photography, the background is part of the overall scene. It's behind the main subject of the photograph. Proper design and use is critical to photographic success. Recent trends minimalize backgrounds where possible to focus on the main subject. So that's the case in number 9. It's B, background. Okay, so this young lady here, she's in the foreground. Almost 2/3 of this photo is background, but we've kind of blurred it out, but it balances off the foreground. It makes this foreground important by being behind the subject. All right, so here's a squirrel, same idea. This is like 2/3 of this is really background. It's not blurred out, but if you're talking about like foreground, middle ground, background, this is an example of that. There's the foreground. There's not much of a middle ground because we've got grass, a rock, and a squirrel. And then this is definitely the background. And then in this case, almost all of this is background material. We've got some rocks up here, but for the most part, the sky and the water in the back, that's all background material. So number 9 would be B, background. Flip. Moving right along. Okay, number 10, what is the primary photo technique of this image? So that tree, whoops, there we go. That tree is definitely rule of thirds. I'm going to move this along a little bit because it's a little redundant. Rule of thirds, I think I even had that as an example. It's warm in here today. Sorry. Moving down through the images. Oh, I guess I didn't have that as an example, but rule of thirds, that's a tree. Number 11, which is not, the image is not framing. Okay, so which is not framing? Well, A, definitely framing. I mean, it's physically in a doorway surrounded by frames. B is similar to that one that we saw earlier. There's a rock structure and it's mirrored on the bottom. It makes a perfect circle around that nature scene. D, it's like a building. No, I guess it's not a building. It's a sculpture that you can see through and you see buildings beyond it. So that's naturally framed. C is not framing. C would be the answer. That is a perfect example of symmetry, a balance on either side, but that's not framing. Okay, number 12. Number 12, which image is not leading lines? Okay, so not leading lines. A is definitely leading lines. We've got 2 lines on the road moving out towards a vanishing point surrounded by trees. B is the example right before this that was of leading lines, the 2 pipes and the fence kind of moving off into a vanishing point. C, we've got these bookshelves, and they are definitely leading lines, so it would be D. D would be also a close-up and maybe even a little bit of rule of thirds, and that's a good example of how many of these images can be more than one. So number 12 would be D. 13, what technique is not represented in this photo? This is what I was just talking about. We can have more than one technique in a photo, and this one we're trying to find out what doesn't work. So viewpoint, yep, we're looking right at that butterfly. Symmetry, yep, it's mirrored on either side. Background, we've got the butterfly in the foreground. The background kind of fills in that negative space. So leading lines would be the answer here, A. I'm going to check email because something just popped up real quick to see if it's about us. and it is not. It is about Etsy. We don't care. All right. Oops. Let me click off of this. Click onto that. Click onto this. Click off there. There. Okay. Number 14. Which technique is not represented in this photo? So we've got viewpoint. We have depth of field in here. We have symmetry. We have leading lines for sure. The answer would be D, framing. There's no framing going on in that image. All right, we are almost done, sort of. 15. Yep, I'm going to move this along a little bit because we're at 10:23. 15. Which image is not a close-up? A, B, and D are definitely close-ups, so that would leave C, which is more of a rule of thirds image and background, so not a close-up, letter C. Number 16, which technique is not represented in this photo? So leading lines is definitely there, depth of field is there because it's blurry out away from us and focused up close. Symmetry is definitely there. It's mirrored on either side as far as balance. Viewpoint, this is definitely like point of view. This is us looking up at a building. So close up would be letter C would be the answer. Number 17, which technique is not represented in this photo? Is definitely a close up. It's a point of view. Rule of thirds, the way the space is balanced out. So leading lines would definitely not be represented in this photo, so that is B for 17. Last three to go. So let me flip here for a second. Anybody's in the house? All right. Number 18, what is the primary photo technique of this image? So the primary photo technique, there's no lines, there's no real depth of field, everything's really kind of in focus. Symmetry, you could argue that this is kind of symmetrical, but the answer is C, background. Now, speaking of that, the quizzes, remember we've changed format. I sent an announcement about this. You get 2 shots at this, folks. You get 2 shots at the grade, 100% grade. So, and then it will shut it down. So I had a couple people writing. They said, well, it's not working. I tried it twice and then I did it and it won't let me change my grade. Yeah, you got 2 shots at it, guys, because I'm giving you the answers right here. All you have to do is watch. Number 19, which image is not a rule of thirds? Okay, so A, B, and C are definitely rule of thirds. D, you've got a whole bunch of stuff stuck right in the middle of the image. So that doesn't make it a poor photograph by any means. It's a cool photograph there of a lime or lemon. I'm not sure because my image is in black and white. But rule of thirds, definitely, we like that. We like the visual content. We might not think about it, but we as human beings just like that composition. Last one, number 20. What is the primary technique in this image? Primary one is just hardcore symmetry right there. Okay, it's balanced from left to right. Put a line right down the middle, and it is symmetrical, like butterfly wings. Okay, so those are the answers 1 through 20 of the quizy. Today we talked about care of negatives. I'm going to scroll up to the top here. We talked about care of negatives. We talked about what we did in the past, where we're handing in for a grade the test strip and the contact sheet and the test strip and the print. Let me scoot back to me. So negative care, cut them up, put them in the sleeve, put our name on it, get our stuff out of the darkroom. We're going to start into the penny line drawing tomorrow. And that, I got to make a note real quick. So while I'm making this note, we are on the 33-minute mark. I'm going to stick around. No one's in the chat right now. So I'm going to stick around for just about 1 more minute. And I'm going to sum this up for today. 4x5 paper cut. I'm going to sum this up for today, and I will see you in class. Remote students, if you need to chat, clarification, communication, questions, any of that stuff, I'm available between 1 and 2. I'll send out the invite for the Google class, or the Google Meet. Actually, as soon as I leave this live stream, And lastly, so the live stream, folks, one more quick reminder. I have a full hour allocated just to you, and I have covered 35 minutes of it just for instruction. The rest of the time is for clarification, communication, questions from you. But if there's nobody in the chat and there's no okay, sorry, side note. There's nothing in the email, then I assume we are all set and we're going to move on. And that is the case. So we will see you in the future.